Hello, everyone. Thank you for the invitation to be part of these important discussions. I have 4 introductory points. First, being just to a text, a worthy goal for historians and theologians alike, how do we proceed to distill meaning from it that is not ours, but would have made sense among ancient worldviews beyond contemporary normative wishes and boundaries? I suggest that historical research should proceed as archaeology does, beginning with the top layer, the here and now, before we move on to uncover historical layers further down. Second, the first task is to consider the question itself, what it means and what it can do for us. Our texts are used by Christians today, but nowhere in them do we find the word Christianity. Modern mainstream forms of Judaism, on the other hand, developed from late antique rabbinic Judaism, a form of Judaism that did not exist when these texts were written. So, when we ask where the texts included in the New Testament were within Judaism, we do not speak of the discursive and ritual dynamics characteristic of rabbinic Judaism, ancient or modern. Within Judaism, questions lead us then away from the familiar and into foreign territory with no immediate hermeneutical relevance in sight. Such relevance belongs elsewhere with various religious communities and is not inherent to the dynamics involved in historical reconstruction. If we ask the historical question based on our contemporary definitions, the New Testament texts are neither Christian nor Jewish. 3. The New Testament texts do fit very well, however, with the diverse scene of Second Temple period forms of Judaism, where we find neither rabbis nor Christians. To understand the forms of beliefs and practices witnessed in these texts in context, I suggest that one of the important ways of doing so is to focus on the institutions in which groups were formed and identity maintained. Ancient synagogues. The reason is that institutions are manifestations of social agreements, and such agreements constitute key evidence as we seek to define collective entities such as Judaism. In fact, it would be almost impossible to speak of the category Judaism, I think, without considering these institutions. The ancient institutions themselves are not to be confused with modern synagogues, however, but came into basic form, designated by overlapping Greek, Latin, Hebrew terms. Public civic institutions on the one hand, and semi-public associations on the other. While the historical Jesus was active in the former, it is the latter that holds the key to understanding the origins of what became modern forms of Judaism and Christianity. 4. My final point follows from the previous ones. It is not enough to study the texts themselves, I think, and their inception history if we seek to understand them historically as within Judaism. We need to study their reception and therefore also our own relationship to them, which means accepting their otherness. It is this otherness that opens up for reading New Testament texts within Judaism. I would even argue that there are no alternatives to doing so, and that what we see developing in the first century are multiple Jesus-oriented variants of Jewish life and thought, as well as messianic forms of Judaism specifically designed for Gentiles. Thank you. I look forward to our discussions.